Alright, so this episode's TikTok liberal has now made up a whole bunch of new sexual pronouns or identities or something. I don't even really know. You tell me what you think.
This is a reminder that non-asexual aromantic and allosexual aromantic are not always interchangeable. Non-asexual aromantic includes identities such as my own. I'm not asexual, but I'm not allosexual either. My experiences are going to be very different from an allosexual aromantic person's. I think it's just important if you're an ally who's talking about aromantic issues, if you're talking about allosexual aromantic issues, make sure to say allosexual aromantic. There is nothing wrong with that term. Just saying non-asexual aromantic also includes other aromantic people who might not experience sexual attraction but still don't identify as asexual. Just something to keep in mind.
Okay, so I thought that I was aware of all of these sexual identities, but now, what in the world is allosexual? Now that to me sounds like some kind of lotion. I don't know, maybe it's the plant. Somebody please help me out here. What in the world are they talking about? Is this where you're in a relationship with the plant? Or is it some kind of something that you rub on your skin? I don't know. And the problem is that if you don't keep up with these people, then you're the bigot. You're the one that needs to be canceled because you aren't aware of all of these new terminologies and things that they try to come up with literally week by week. But the problem and the real takeaway I think here is that look at how they're just dividing themselves up like crazy at this point. Before it was all, well, it's just gay and lesbian, and then it started adding in the trans and this, and now it's just LGBTQ plus element of PQRS. It's crazy. It just keeps going and going and going, and now they just added a plus at the end because why not at this point? Otherwise it's going to get too long. But what they're doing is that they're really dividing themselves up. This was already a very, very small portion of the United States. And now, when they add all of these extra little groups and everything together, what you're winding up with is almost kind of like a weird individualism because they have divided themselves up so much. Already a very small portion of people, to the point that now these already small groups are even smaller. And eventually, if everybody keeps coming up with their little pieces and new words for their own thing, they might as well say, hey, everybody's an individual, which is exactly what we believe now, and should be treated as such. Because you can no longer put these people in groups when those groups are no longer really justifying the sake of a group. It might be two people. At a certain point, it might just be one person that identifies with their own crazy laundry list of things that only applies to that one person. So it's kind of weird. It really is weird how they have now over time are heading in this direction of almost where the individual is the only thing that really matters, not so much the group. Even though they're still including it under the LGBT thing or whatever, it's still turning into this really very, very minute sections of people that apply under certain sexual identities to the point that it's just gotten way out of hand. And those people now are individuals. They might be the lone people in a group that identify that way or use these pronouns or feel this way sexually or what have you, and use that and say that, well, this only applies to me. This is what makes me unique. I think at the same time as left-wing youth wants to be a part of a group, I mean, we were all young once. We wanted to fit in with people. Now, they really want to be unique. But the problem is that the more unique the more common it becomes. So, for example, if there's a kid in school, and right now it's cool it's actually not even cool to be gay or lesbian anymore because it's so common, right? And that's kind of the point that I'm making, because then they'll say, well, I'm actually trans now. I'm going to come out and say that this is the way that I am. And then once they do that, then they're saying, well, you know what? Now it's not all that special to be trans. So let me try to tack on a few other of these sexual orientations to maybe add all of this in there so that I look and sound more unique than I really am. And then before you realize it, all of a sudden they are trying to be individuals in all of this. They don't want to belong to the group. So the left loves to categorize people into groups, but I don't think most of the youth want to be groups. They want to be themselves. They want to be individuals with their own feelings, but it conflicts with everything that they're being told that they need to do to be that way. And as these things become more common, as people start to, and kids start to latch on and say, hey, that looks cool, let me go do this. That looks cool, yeah, I'll do that too. I mean, I was reading the book Irreversible Damage, and it was Irreversible Damage, and it was talking about this. And basically you have the situation where, for the people that are listening to this, when you were in school, same with myself, We probably didn't know any trans people. I didn't know any trans people when I was in school. Nowadays, it's if you're in a public school, it is not if, it is you definitely do. It's how many do you know if you're a kid right now in school? Because they're just all over the place. It's kind of blown up out of nowhere. Now everybody's trying to do it. And this is the problem. Kids wanting to stand out, wanting to be individuals, but they have to do that by going along with the group settings, these woke group things that the left has created. But now they're just inventing their own stuff at this point because there's nothing for them to do. They don't want to just be lumped into some group anymore. They want to be special, and their version of special is to tack on a bunch of different pronouns, change their name, change their sex, change this orientation. It's a never-ending cycle of trying to fit in, but also trying to gain attention by worshiping, really, the idol of nonsense. These names, these orientations are idols. They don't make any sense at all, but they basically worship them because it's integral to how they live, every part of it. And that to me is really what scares or at least scares me for the next generation, because they've got to wake up at some time and realize the real world doesn't operate the way that you think it is. The real world doesn't care what little pronouns you're using and everything. The real world isn't that way. But ultimately, we'll see what happens with this. I'm definitely intrigued to kind of see where the youth goes in this. But TikTok is kind of like, as cringy as that application is, it's kind of the launching point for this stuff, because you're starting to see how insane they've gotten, how they're starting to come up with new things over and over again to the point that they don't even probably understand what it is they're talking about. You just watched a clip from The William Hall Show. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe.